Hello everybody, welcome back along. We're going to talk about a particular favourite soapbox of mine. It's parachute payments again. Sorry if you've heard me go on enough about this, but yet again they are in the news because the Premier League have come out to defend parachute payments. By God. So this is in light of Rick Parry's comments in that conference call yesterday that parachute payments are evil and need to be eradicated even. And the Premier League have come out to defend parachute payments, and I can't quite believe it, but there you go. It's turkeys voting for Christmas, isn't it? So let's have a look what the comments are in reaction to Rick Parry. A Premier League spokesperson said parachute payments give newly promoted clubs the confidence to invest in their squads to be competitive in the Premier League. So their opening gambit is that this money, the parachute payments, is so that they can spend loads in the Premier League and then not tank afterwards. We understand the principle of that. They're obviously not seeing the distorting fact that has on the teams that don't have parachute payments, and sadly I think they're the teams that the Premier League are failing to kind of think about here. Obviously parachute payments are a Premier League device paid to ex-Premier League teams. It's a bit worrying that the £100 million TV money isn't enough confidence for people to invest in their squads, but the sentence alone shows just a lack of regard for the Championship and the other EFL teams in it. They go on, the Championship is a highly competitive league with attendances, viewing figures and revenues, the envy of second-tier leagues around the world. Okay, fine, and what? Yeah, the Championship's great. I have a YouTube channel about it. Do you really think that parachute payments help with the level of competitions, or do they perhaps force teams to who don't have them to take massive risks to try and be competitive? I think that's probably more likely. Here's the one that really gets us. We see no evidence that parachute payments distort performance at that level and are an essential part of this highly competitive environment. Well, I'm going to try and go on and produce some evidence. Shouldn't really be too hard, should it? We also provide solidarity payments to every other EFL club, payments without parallel elsewhere in leagues around the world. Yes, brilliant. And they've hit the nail on the head here. The solidarity payments are great. They're fantastic. I'm sure every club who receives them is grateful to the Premier League. It's not the issue. The issue is the difference in the size of the parachute payments against the solidarity payments. In year one of parachute payments, they are 10 times more. So the Premier League in their statement has kind of underlined every argument we make against them in that one go. Yes, it's a crazy league. Yes, attendances are high and it's competitive and fun, but the distortion clearly comes from the difference in the amounts. So before anyone goes on their high horse in the comments, I, and probably most people, are not asking for parachute payments to be removed. We understand that, yes, cliff edges are really bad and we cannot expect teams to come down from the Premier League and have no cushion. We get that. We all understand that. We saw what happened when there was no cushion, because my team got relegated in the season when there was no cushion, when ITV Digital went bust and there was just no broadcast money around. What happened to the three teams that went down? Ipswich, Leicester, Derby, all into administration. We get that they're necessary, but it's the difference in splitting the money is where the distortion comes, and I cannot believe that they've come out with this statement. So I don't want to sound like a whiny little socialist moaning from underneath, and I don't do this video as an Ipswich fan. I do this video as a watcher of the Championship, and really just to talk from the point of view of the teams that do not have parachute payments. Yes, they're great if you've got them. Everyone would like them, wouldn't you? Who wouldn't like an extra 70 million across 2 or 3 years, or depending on which year you come down? The issue I've got is just they're not acknowledging the people that don't have them, and yeah, it does sound a little bit socialist, left-wing type claptrap from me. moaning for the people that don't have money, whilst the people that do have money want to keep it amongst themselves. But there is an element of that, I do promise here. So, look, I've got to talk about the new system, because I think the new system has gone from bad to worse. And that is in 16-17. The parachute payments went down from being split over 4 years to over 3 years. They didn't go to less money, they went up, in fact, and they were split over less years. So what that did is that really inflated that first year's payment, literally double in some cases. So you go from a sort of 20 million, 18, whatever the numbers are in those previous years, to now 40 million, 34, and then 15, I think it was last year. So I'm looking at these last 3 years, and for those people who think that that's a convenient way in the comments, believe me, my argument would be stronger if I used the year before, because you've got both Burnley and Hull getting promotion in receipt of parachute payments. So I'm not cherry picking just the last 3 years. I'm picking when I think the system just went completely bonkers and you end up with one team being paid 40 million and they're competing against a team being paid 4 million. And if you can't see why that's a distortion, then maybe start watching now. So that's what happened. Let's have a look historically. And people have asked me in my rants about parachute payments to look at the numbers and kind of prove or disprove. Well, it's very, very hard. It's what you call in science a multivariate analysis you'd need to do, because are parachute payments the only factor? Is money the only factor in a team's success or failure? No, it's not. There are other factors. There are operational decisions. There are other revenues outside of parachute payments. There's good management and bad management. There's luck. There's all sorts of factors. But all I can talk about is the teams that did have them, as opposed to the teams that didn't have them. And yes, there are going to be other mitigating factors, but hey, this video is about parachute payments. So, in that first season, your year one teams relegated are Newcastle, Villa and Norwich, the first teams to get that big bumper payment. You've still got QPR on year two of a nice sweet 4-year deal that they had. You've got Fulham and Cardiff on year 3 of a 4-year deal that they have, and you've got Wigan and Reading on year 4 of a 4-year deal that they had. You'll remember that promoted that season with Newcastle, Brighton and Huddersfield. So Newcastle pocketed the year one and went straight back up. We'll talk about the other teams later in the video, do not worry. Yes, Newcastle can bring in more match day revenue than anyone else. Again, it would take a very scientific multivariate analysis. Let's just talk about the parachutes. So the second year of this is it's even worse, really. So you've got Sunderland, Borough and Hull in receipt of the big year one payments. Norwich and Villa now have their year 2 payment. QPR, the 3rd year. Fulham and Cardiff go on to the 4th year. And 2 of the 3 teams that go up, Cardiff and Fulham, are both in receipt of parachute payments. Wolves, well, we'll talk about their finances again a bit later in the video. And you come on to the final year that we've got the full results for. Obviously, you can look at 2019-20, but I don't want to do so until we know the final outcomes. So promoted in that year, Norwich, Sheffield United and Villa. Again, Villa in receipt of parachute payments, that's their 3rd year. Norwich would have been in their 3rd year, but they were only up for 1 season, so they only got 2 years. Norwich is an interesting one, we'll talk about that at the end. Sheffield United, okay, along with Huddersfield, they're waving the flag for the heroes that managed to buck the system and get through the distortion and do it without. So now in that year, you've got your year 1 team, Swansea, Stoke, West Brom. You've got Borough, Sunderland and Hull. Yes, Sunderland managed to get relegated with parachute payments. We'll see what that says for my argument in a minute. You've got Villa in the 3rd year, obviously they went up, and QPR finally running out. So let's look at a few stats, and I'll try not to be selective and just point out stats that prove what I want to say. Everyone knows I have an agenda that I do believe they distort it. The numbers do say that in the 3 years of the 3-year system of parachutes, when it changed, 5 out of the 9 teams who've gone up had parachute payments. So 55% of promoted teams had parachute payments. Remember, the league is populated as well. The majority of teams do not have parachute payments. So 55% is very high, especially when you consider majority of teams do not have them. What about the ones that just missed out? So other teams with parachute payments there are populating the top 6 as well. In 16-17, Reading and Fulham, both in receipt of parachute payments, lose in the playoff semis. 17-18, it's a bad year. It's dominated by the parachute teams. Villa and Borough lose in the playoff semis. Remember, Cardiff and Fulham also in receipt of parachute payments go up there. So that sounds like 3 or 4 playoff teams all in receipt of parachute payments. In 18-19, you've got West Brom competing with Aston Villa in an all parachute payment semi-final there and losing out. So across the 3 years, let's take the whole of the top 6 now, broaden it a little bit, it's exactly 55% again. 18 top 6 teams in the last 3 years, 10 of them were in receipt of parachute payments. Again, 55%. I'm talking about in this 3-year period. Did they get parachute payments or did they not? If they had them and they get promoted the year afterwards, I'm going to use that in my example because the advantage doesn't just run out the second that they've stopped. Presumably some of that money's still in the bank, and due to it being so much more than the solidarities, then there you go. So in those 3 years, 13 teams have received the payments, and those 13 teams between them account for 5 promotions and 5 playoff semi-final defeats. So the teams at the top getting into the playoffs and getting promoted, invariably over half of them have parachute payments. I have heard the argument, and I'm sorry, it did make me chuckle. Well, what about so-and-so team? They didn't go up and they had parachute payments. And I just banged my head against the wall for that one, because just because you give somebody an advantage and they don't use the advantage doesn't mean it wasn't an advantage in the first place. A very, very simple analogy. If you watcher and you challenge me to a running race and you give me a 5-minute head start, and I choose to go and spend the 5-minute head start in Costa Coffee eating a cake and only start running when you start running, and then you win the race, does that mean my advantage wasn't an advantage after all? Oh, giving someone a 5-minute head start in a run race isn't an advantage because that person still lost? No, I didn't use my advantage through sheer ignorance and stupidity. So let me give you some examples of some teams who did not use their advantage and why, I think. The first glaring one is Sunderland, who have had parachutes and didn't get promoted. And I think we can all point to a situation there where you've got Ellis Short, who's wanted out for ages. He wants new owners. He's going to pocket those parachute payments against the losses he's made in the previous years in the Premier League and try and sell the club. And it's fairly obvious that's exactly what happened. The investment wasn't there. They didn't use that money. It was used to offset previous debts. And in the end, new owners come in. We've all seen Sunderland till I die. So there you go. Our first owner that didn't spend them, basically. Then you've got Middlesbrough. Okay, Middlesbrough, probably you're going to go bad operational decisions there. They didn't press home the advantage they had. They hired Gary Monk. They did spend the parachute payments. That's where you've got Ashley Fletcher and Britta Sombolonga and Martin Braithwaite coming in for a fortune. So yes, Borough had the advantage and they wasted the advantage. In comes Tony Pulis. And yes, they still got in the playoff semi-finals the next year. And they should have been in the playoff semi-finals last year, but it was a 6-game losing streak at the end of the season. So Borough tried to exploit the advantage. Bad operational decisions. They did not do it. Hull, well, they're in the Sunderland boat again, aren't they? You've got the alarms. They want out. They want to run the club at a profit. And did they spend any of the money? No, they didn't. They pocketed most of it in Short. And okay, you had sort of Harry Wilson brought in on a nice loan deal in the first season, and they managed to keep Bowen and Grzycki a while, but in the end, no, they go as well. So I would put Hull in with Sunderland. We'll talk about Swansea next. The owners didn't want to spend the money. Swansea, similar sort of thing. I'll bow to the superior knowledge of Swansea fans watching. You've got the American owners there, and it looks like they kind of wanted to do a cost-cutting exercise. Have they spent loads of parachute money? No, they haven't spent it. Stoke, yes, they have spent it. They went big on Gary Rowett, but in exactly the same way Middlesbrough did. It was the wrong fit. So yes, they had the advantage, bad operational decisions, and then a second manager, not like Middlesbrough where they did actually get chasing. Stoke, in they come, and Nathan Jones, the second manager as well, wasting the money. So Stoke is a big one there. That's a big outlier of parachutes being an advantage. But you can just point to bad managerial appointments and bad signings. It wasn't that they didn't try and use that advantage. West Brom, well, arguably West Brom have taken advantage. They're likely to go up this season. They finished in the playoffs last season. They were very ruthless with Darren Moore. They managed to function in the Championship with Jay Rodriguez, Dwight Gale and Harvey Barnes up front. So go and ask Millwall and Rotherham and Luton and Barnsley fans how much of their budget they'd take to have those three up top. So West Brom losing playoff semi-finals to a Villa team that we've seen the wage bills now that just outspent everybody by double and multiples of 10 times if you compare, say, Villa and Rotherham. So I think there's a fairly easy way to debunk it not, that team didn't go up, so it's not an advantage. Well, most of those, some very bad managerial appointments, some bad signings. Yes, of course you have to use the money well. I understand that. And in Sunderland, maybe Hull, and to a certain extent Swansea's cases, owners that want to pocket the money and soften the debts and refinance completely. So what about the effect on teams that didn't have them? So who got promoted without parachute payments? Well, big thumbs up to Huddersfield, who managed to do it. They made a £19.6 million loss, but remember promotion bonuses, we have to account, so Norwich fans keep telling me. But big round of applause for Stuart Webber and David Wagner. Out of nowhere, brilliant promotion there. Brighton did it. And I'd bow to Kieran Maguire, who's the expert and a Brighton fan here. I've got a quote from Tony Bloom saying, any Championship club without parachute payments wishing to compete for promotion will inevitably make significant losses. And Brighton's accounts say, leading up to that promotion, a £10 million loss, a £25 million loss, so just inside of FFP. And in their promotion season, I'm sure again this loss is ratcheted against bonuses that then could have been paid once they went up. A £38.9 million loss. So I'm sure a lot of that loss wouldn't have happened, but there would have been a fire sale at Brighton by the look of it if they hadn't have gone up. So Brighton, as heroic as Huddersfield, I think not. Wolves, come on. Really? Fosun, £57 million loss there. So essentially that's more than a year one parachute payment. Anyway, they did it cleverly. They're outside the jurisdiction of FFP. Did it in the first year as well. There would have been trouble if they'd have done at least 3 years of that, wouldn't they? So Norwich is a weird one because they had the parachute payments. They did use them to restructure from some awful spending in the Premier League. Van Wolfswinkel, Naismith, Oliveira, Wiltshire, Pritchard. Some massive spending there on players that didn't work. They come down. They did the brilliant restructure and actually went up the year after the parachute payments run out. And yes, a great promotion in the end again with Stuart Webber, who was at Huddersfield, and Daniel Farker. But how can you argue that they did have 74 million the 2 years before and then go up in the third year? How can you argue that it wasn't any advantage at all? It allowed them to absorb all those terrible signings that they'd made. And yes, okay, they went on to make some brilliant signings, Pookie, Stiepermann, Buendia, with a crop of youngsters. But surely having 74 million when over those 2 years, when everyone else gets two chunks of 4 million, it's got to be an advantage, hasn't it? Sheffield United, yes, okay, like Huddersfield, brilliant, brought in a great manager, great system, and up they go. So hopefully I've provided some evidence as to why I just think the Premier League is totally wrong to say they can't find evidence for it distorting. Overwhelmingly, the teams at the top of the league and the ones getting promoted have parachute payments, 55% since this last system was put up. And again, it could be a higher number if I go back one more year and include Burnley and Hull in there. Do some quick maths. That's 12 teams and 7 promoted as opposed to 9 and 5 of them being parachute teams. Look, I get it. Of course, relegated teams probably have better players and are more likely to go up anyway. But the issue the Premier League just does not seem to get is it's the other teams that it affects. Yes, parachute payments are helpful. Yes, they reduce a cliff edge. But all I think any sensible watcher of the league is asking for is, can it be a little bit fairer? I.e., can you give less of a gap between Millwall, who get £4 million solidarity payments, and pick any team that just came down, Huddersfield, and this is Huddersfield as well, that made the biggest operating profit of any Premier League team last season of 23 million, or was it the season before? One of those seasons that figure is correct. They're going to get 10 times more than Millwall, and then they're competing in the same division. If that is not a distortion, I don't know what is. But hey, if someone from the Premier League wants to watch my video and see things how it's clearly, I think, a distortion, then they can go ahead. And again, yes, there's teams that have them and don't spend them and they don't go up, fine. There's teams that have them and make very bad operational decisions. They're not a guarantee. Nobody's saying that they're not necessary to even the cliff edge. Nobody is saying that they're a guarantee of promotion. Are they a massive advantage and do they distort the league? By God, yes, they do. Wow. Hopefully my workings out and my argument is fairly reasonable. If you disagree with me, fine. Let me know why in the comments. Just be nice about it and we'll have a civil debate and a civil discourse about it. Again, I will reiterate, my argument is yes, they're necessary. No, they are not a guarantee of promotion. Are they an advantage? Yes. Do they distort the league? Yes. Would I be in favour of a system where the difference between what solidarity teams get and what parachute teams get becomes less? Yes, please try and make that happen. If you watch my interview with Kieran Maguire, I identify how they can split exactly the same amount of money in a much fairer way. Kieran's argument to me was, you're going to ask Premier League teams vote to have less money when they come down. They're not going to do it. But hey, does Rick Parry have the balls now? Does the EFL have the bargaining position to actually say, no, this is our EFL, this system is not good, it does distort the league, you need to redistribute. At least come a little bit closer. Hey, maybe 6 million to Millwall and 35 million to Huddersfield. Even it up evenly. Oh, God. There we go. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you agree, disagree, let's get a nice, good debate going. But that is my, frankly, shocked reaction to a Premier League output today saying they don't think there's any evidence it distorts the league. Dearie me. Get in the comments, follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. If you've got any ideas for new videos, keep them coming to stop me raising my blood pressure, feeling how unfair these parachute payments are. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video. And just remember, it's all a little bit of fun, isn't it? We'll have a little chit chat about football. Hey, it's not too serious. People are dying, hey? Over and out.